Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another episode of podcast in Madlookz VFX. Today we have Xavier Bourque as our guest. So let's jump into the podcast. Hello Xavier, how are you?
Hello, I'm good.
I hope you're doing good in these COVID times. Strange times you're living.
Yeah. I know it's crazy. It's very annoying, but we manage.
Hopefully,
on the plus side, it opened a lot of options for remote work and remote learn that we didn't have before. So long term, it's gonna be maybe, I don't know. It's a big thing to say, maybe a net benefit.
That's a good outcome from COVID. I'm sure many of my viewers already might know PXF tools, but for the viewers here, can you give us a casual intro about yourself?
I've been working in VFX as a comper since late 2000, so it's going to be 21 years, 22 years.
Wow.
In the last before that, I worked at Autodesk as a technical support for Flame, which is still a compositing software. I've been working in Nuke for as long as Nuke has been popular, so maybe 10 years or something like that. And I back in the Shake days, I did a few macros, they call them, which are now Gizmos and Nuke. But back then in Shake, I did the pixel fudger macros for stuff because I started in Flame, I switched to Shake and then Nuke. And I was missing some of the stuff I was used to have in Flame when I switched to Shake. So I made a few macros to try to bridge the gap. That forced me to learn how to program. It's lightweight programming, but still. And when I switched to Nuke, Nuke was better than Shake in terms of tool sets. So I needed less stuff, but I still needed some stuff. So I built a few gizmos over the years. And I didn't really promote them that much. At some point, I made a website, but mostly word of mouth. And I put them on Wikipedia as well. But they just traveled. People that work with me saw me using them because I basically built them for myself. And they were like, "Oh, that's cool. So maybe you can use that." And then a facility would install it, or people would take them, and which is fine by me. I'm okay with people grabbing them and taking them. And they just took them, moved around, and then artists start to move to other facilities. They're like, "Hey, I used to work this at the other place. Can we install it?" And next thing I know, I got an email a few years ago from ILM. It's like, "What's your licensing and legal terms?" and blah blah blah. I'm like,
"Wow,
you can use them, guys. That's fine." And so I hear once in a while from ex-colleagues, friends that move to a new studio, like, "Hey, I just started at blah 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 studios, and your stuff's already installed in the basic install of the facility." So that's nice to hear. I'm working on updates right now because I have a little bit of free time. So I'm expecting within the next month to have an update. So I see on my website that the last update is from 2015. So once every 7 years, like a comet that comes back, I'll do updates. So I've got bug fixes. Not that there's that many, but just little tweaks and a few new tools. Mostly stuff that I've built because I've been teaching for the last few years. And I've needed some stuff for students that I think might be useful to the general Nuke public. So I'll post an update hopefully in the next month. I'm hard at work on that right now.
Yeah, I'm sure you already got many positive words about PXF tools from Canada, but I know many studios in India. And many of my friends are, a big fan of PXF tools. So,
that's cool.
You are the best.
That's nice. That's nice to hear. Yeah, it's crazy. This thing had a bit of a life of its own because I didn't push it that hard. I put it on Nukepedia, made the website mostly the website was. And I think the biggest benefit I got from that was it gives you a bit of when you interview for a job or something like that, or you talk with people that you don't know, gives you a little bit of a conversation starter. I was like, "Oh, you're the guy that made this," and it kind of breaks the ice a little bit. But I didn't get rich from that. There's a buy me a coffee thing on the website. I think overall for the last 7 years, I made $40 on it or something. So it doesn't even cover the web hosting for it. So yeah, I'm not getting rich off of it, but it's cool. It's nice. It's a nice feeling to know that your stuff's being used everywhere.
I'm sure it's not in Canada alone. It's all across the world. People use PXF tools. So, which are some of your favorite softwares that which you use in your daily work? This can be for CG, compositing, day-to-day shot planning, etc., etc.
I'm pretty basic. So obviously Nuke, that's the number one thing. If I don't have Nuke, I can't work. Other than that, I mean, it depends on the facility you work at. So each facility have their own tools. Right now, I'm mostly teaching. I don't comp as much as I used to. Mm-hmm. I've become quite fond of Discord for team communications. Okay. Because I'm an old guy and I don't game, so I didn't know that much about it. And when COVID hit, I was like, at first we were using like Google Hangouts, and now it's become pretty basic. Google Meet. Yeah. So I know a lot of people are using Teams and Slack and blah blah, but I found that when I switched to Discord, like most of my students knew how to use it already. Most of them already had an account.
Yeah, the Gen Z guys.
And it's the layout's really nice to share links and screenshots.
Yeah,
and stuff like that. So, but other than that, I try not to rely on extra software. And I would advise if your audience is mostly rookies, don't rely on plugins and stuff too much, because you don't control. And I a lot of my students often will go, oh, we could do that in Photoshop. It's like, don't use Photoshop. It's a crutch. You can do 98% of what you need to do, because we're not map painters, we're compers in Nuke. And you cannot expect stuff, especially Adobe stuff, to be installed on your box at work. It's because most of the companies are using Linux, and Adobe stuff is notoriously bad on Linux. But also just licensing, even if it was easy, even if you're working at a place that is Windows or Mac, are they going to pay a full Creative Cloud subscription for the 5 times in the year you need to do some cloning in Photoshop? So don't rely too much on software outside of Nuke unless it's obvious. I mean, obviously, if you want to do fluid sim, you don't do it in Nuke, do it in Houdini or something else, right? But if you're doing compositing or paintwork, I mean, so I'm a bit softer on my stance is a bit softer on Silhouette and Mocha, because they're available as plugins for Nuke. And they seem to be popular enough that you have a good chance of them being installed, but you cannot rely on it. So you should, as a rookie, concentrate on really being able to do the most you can with Nuke, even if some of it is a bit painful, because Nuke's not a perfect in every way, right? You could always find some software that does something better than Nuke, but try to master that, because you're going to have that on your desk for sure. Everything else is a maybe. And it's not a money thing. I've struggled with this. I had a hard time to understand this before, but when I worked at ILM, they didn't have a plugin that I almost require when I do green screen and blue screen, which is Neat Video to do noise reduction. That was years ago. Probably they have it now, but years ago it was still fairly unknown. And I was like, guys, we should use this, because I've got this shot that's really grainy and lots of small detail. I'm struggling. And they're like, and my soup was like, and I was like, what the hell's the problem? You guys are running $1 billion company here, and you can't buy $100 plugin? I'll pay it with my own credit card. I don't give a crap, And they're like, no. And then I realized, and people explained to me, that it's not the money thing most of the time. It's the hassle. It's got to go through a lot of departments for this plugin to end up on your desk. They've got to, especially huge companies, American companies, they really legal averse. So they got to read the license agreement that you do next. They pay somebody to read that stuff, and then you gotta if you've got a render farm, you got how many more licenses you get for each blade on the farm, or do you want to use a subset of the farm? If you do, then you need to add a check mark in the farm submitter. it creates a lot of work for a lot of people for just a $5 plugin. So try to rely, and we're talking about a plugin, not even a whole new software, which is a big deal. So don't rely on extra software. It's easy when you're at home. Maybe you've got a little crack license thing going on, or a little blah blah, and then it works. But you can't rely on this for work. So for software, mostly Nuke, and then stuff around it just for office stuff like communications, like email and chat and stuff like that. So now one of my favorite for school is Discord, because it's a fairly smaller team. I know a lot of people using Teams, but again, as an end user, as a rookie, you don't have any say in this. You get to use what the company uses. So my advice would be your number one thing is become efficient at Nuke. Know your tool on the top of your fingers, know all the common hotkeys, become really comfortable with it. Just like if I tell you open a door, you don't have to mentally think, I gotta extend my arm, twist the knob, pull the door. It's all one motion. You don't even think about it. Nuke should be the same. You shouldn't have to go, what's the node? What's the how? This should be fluid. Once you've got that, then especially now, and it's never going to go back the way it was, even pre-pandemic, become really good at office stuff. Email, chat, shotgun, it used to be called, shot management, meetings, all that kind of stuff. It's a huge time suck. It took me years to realize that 98% of emails are pointless. So you waste a lot of time reading all that stuff. So after a while, I figured out, okay, I'm going to use like Thunderbird's filtering, and I'm just going to filter for my name. So if my name's not on it, it becomes in a secondary folder, and I'm not going to read it as soon. So if my name's in it, then I read it for sure. If my name's not on it, I'm probably not going to read it unless it comes from this and that and this person, like my immediate boss, his boss, and some guy that knows what he's talking about. And everything else goes into a pseudo spam folder, and you skim it, when you have a minute, but this becomes really low priority. Same thing with now with chat and Zoom and
everything,
Microsoft Teams, and you got to know this stuff. You can't fumble. Where's the mute button? Blah blah blah. You should be on top of that thing. This is a new, it reminds me when in the 90s we switched from fax to email. Some people got it right away. Some people were like, "Oh, can you fax it to me?" It's like, no, dude, this is over. Phone calls are over. This is not happening anymore. Like, people want to see your face now. So figure it out. Get your webcam set up. Get your microphone set up. Get your, headphones. Don't do what you need to do to sound good and to hear good, and to be, visible on screen. Sharing your screen. You shouldn't be like, how you do it. Do a test run. Call a buddy of yours that works at the company before the meeting. The first time, obviously not every time, but. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people focus a lot on pixels, and that's what you should do at first. Definitely 100%. You should master your tool, but it's often neglected, all the extra stuff, So is it easier for you to install the app on your phone and use your phone instead of your laptop? Is it whatever, figure it out, figure a way that works for you, that makes it quick for you to show your screen to somebody else, to see somebody else's screen, to hear and talk, that kind of stuff.
Like I personally uses PXF tools a lot in my work. When I moved into Paint, the first tool my lead introduced me is PXF Filler. And so out of every tools in PXF Filler is my favorite. So I know there are many fans for this tool set as well. Can you tell us like a bit more detail about the history of this amazing PXF tool?
Oh man, PXF Filler is an interesting one because I used a variation of it on Flame using a plugin that was from, it wasn't GenArts, it was somebody else. It was a guy that made it wasn't GenArts. It was RS Motion Blur. The guy, Pierre, I think was his name. and he made a few plugins for Flame. And one of them it did infill, but I think it was to do motion blur. So if you had stuff going in opposite directions, it tried, when the foreground stuff became transparent, it tried to remake what was behind. You know, a bit like ZD Focus and Nuke. So it's trying to, because if you have something in the foreground going fast, if you have the shot not blurred and you want to create motion blur, the foreground is going to become transparent and you're missing parts behind it. So he had a crude infill thing, and I realized this could be used to do clean plates, which is what for screen correction, which is what IBK Color does, and you could do it with PXF filler. I prefer to use PXF filler. So I needed that to do green screens on Shake, and I tried to figure out how to do that. So and I realized it was some sort of blur and unpremult, blur, unpremult, blur, unpremult. So there was a succession of blurs and unpremults, but there was a bug in Shake, and the unpremult was unpremulting, like with and instead of dividing by 1, it was dividing by 0.9999. There was some rounding error somewhere, and it gave a really nice effect. I didn't know this at the time. I just thought, oh, my plugin's working great, perfect, you know. And then when I switched to Nuke, it didn't behave the same. It didn't look the same. So I was like, what the hell? And I started playing around. So I had to reintroduce that error in there. So when I do unpremult, I unpremult the blur by the blurred alpha. I put a multiply at 0.99999 or something on it. I don't. It's been a while. I don't remember the number, but something like that. The other thing that makes the tool really useful is that it was easier in Shake to do recursive loops. So if you needed to have multiple copies of the same branch or similar branches, it was easier to do a loop in Shake than it is in Nuke. But I still had to figure it out. So I think that's what gave this node an edge for a little while, is not a lot of people figured out how to rebuild the internals of a group or a gizmo dynamically. So a lot of gizmos that have recursion, they just pre-build a bunch of stuff and they switch. So if you want 2 blurs, you switch at the third branch, and then if you want 5, you switch down the line. But if you need more than what they built, you're screwed. So they usually make enough for common cases, but it means that the group is pretty heavy for nothing if you're not using it, and you're missing branches if you need more. I figured out how to dynamically with Python rebuild the internals. So when you're asking it to do 10 iterations, it actually builds live under the hood 10 branches with all this stuff. If you ask for 100, it's going to rebuild 100 times the branch. And the new stuff I'm working on, most of it is based on the same idea, because everything else is covered already, most of it. Now, there's always cool stuff, but if you need something, there's a good chance it's already on Nukepedia. The stuff that's missing is stuff that's more complex, that needs to dynamically change what's inside under the hood, as depending what you pick on the settings and stuff like that.
I'm really looking forward for that update to roll up soon.
Yeah, but there's nothing earth-shattering in there, but there's a few useful, some fun things. I'm just pointing out because I was happy to make it work, but the core stuff that you really need is already there. Filler, distort, kill spill. These they're not revolutionary different. I'm thinking about playing with filler, but it's already fairly popular.
Yeah.
I don't want to break it. The one improvement I could make is have not all the blurs being the same value. Start small and go bigger, so it would be more efficient. So you would have finer detail near the edges, and as you grow inwards, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. If I have a chance, I'll have a look, see if I can update it without breaking it. Last time I tried to update it, I broke it. I'm like, no, I'm gonna leave it alone.
Yeah, so it's good. So Xavier, I think you're from Montreal, am I right?
Yes.
Okay. So the thing is, like, I get lots of questions from students, or I would say junior artists, who want to pursue some sort of higher education in Montreal. So according to you, like, which are some of the best institution or, college to learn visual effects in Montreal?
Well, obviously, I'm very biased for the school where I'm teaching right now, which is NAD UQAC. UQAC is a university in a it's part of the Quebec Public University Network.
Yep.
And I'm teaching there mostly an intensive compositing class, 17 weeks in French. And we do 2 classes a year. And there's about a dozen students per class. There's also a 3-year bachelor's program, also in French, which is more animation, CGI oriented, less comp, more animation, fluid sims, lighting, modeling, all that kind of stuff. So that's a pretty good place to start also. If there's also a private school called Lost Boys that started off in BC. They have now they have classes in Montreal as well. The reels that are coming out from the students there look pretty promising. So, and I heard this interview with the founder, and I tended to agree with most of the stuff. Like he just like the intensive comp class we're doing at NAD, his point was school will only get you so far. The best school is to work in the industry. You'll learn 100 times faster than you in production than you would. So the idea is figure out what you need to learn to just break even for a company to begin with. Meaning, what do you need to do on your first 6 months to not be a net negative for the company? What can you do so that the stuff you produce covers the cost of people having to help you out and support you at the beginning, which is expected, but companies are there to turn a profit. So if you're sucking more resources than what you put back into the system, then the company is going to go bankrupt if they do that too much. So the idea is, so I like their kind of optics on the whole school situation. I personally, years ago, in the last century, I went to a public school in Jonquière, Quebec, which is called a program called ATM, Art et Technologie des Médias, which is Media Arts and Technology, and it's a public school up there. So that's cold. It's 500 k's northeast of Montreal. It's far and cold, but it's fun. At the time, it was mostly a television production class. Cameras, lighting, microphones, editing, that kind of stuff. They had a little bit of CGI back then. Now they have a way bigger VFX component, and I see a lot of alumni from that school.
Oh, nice.
Along my students working.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, I'm not sure. I haven't been a student in ages, so I haven't had to shop for a school. So I don't know what's the good schools now. But I think Lost Boys might have classes in English in Montreal. Definitely, they have classes in English in BC. For sure. The public options in Quebec, most are in French. There's 3 or 4 English universities. I'm not sure in Montreal, but I'm not sure how much visual effects curriculums they have. So sorry, I don't have a great answer. But if you are physically in Montreal, and you speak French, definitely NAD would be your first choice.
Are there any English courses in NAD currently?
We're starting so more punctual classes. So for instance, in February, I'm gonna give 2 days of green screen keying in English, and I'm gonna do 2 days of deep compositing in English. But these are meant for people that already know Nuke and are working in the industry a little bit, and they want to upgrade their skills on a specific topic. So they're not completely closed off. It's just the most of the customer base here is French speaking. But for classes aimed at the professional market, not students coming out of high school, there's a better chance that they'd be interested to do English classes. Personally, I don't mind. I can do either. But so for the pro stuff, they're starting to explore doing classes in either French or English, because we're not stupid. We realize that there's a lot of workers in the city that don't come from here and don't speak French well enough to follow a class. So we're looking at it for the full-on programs. It might be a little bit trickier, but it's, if there's enough demand. I did it once. The compositing class, the 17-week class, which was 14 when I started, I did one semester in English, so it's not unheard of. So let me say this: if your audience, most of it though, you gotta kind of be physically in Quebec, because a lot of it is subsidized by the government and they kind of want their money back. So if you're not paying taxes here, they might not want to pay for you. And it's also time zones, and if you're too far, it's going to be complicated. But if your audience is in Quebec, I would, and they're interested, don't be turned off just because the website, most of it is in French. The classes are in French. If there's enough demand, they could probably do something. So do get in touch through the website and go, hey, I'm interested. And if you go, hey, I'm interested, and 3 other of my friends are interested, then there might be a way to get the ball rolling. So if enough people request it, we can do it.
That's great. Most of the inquiries which I get are from India and from Asian countries, and I think they don't speak French that much. That's why they're asking them to. I think they are asking classes mostly on English.
Honestly, you could do so much though now with just online stuff. It's just hard to. It's all piecemeal. There's not that much stuff. I know, Hugo Guerra had the big course, was selling classes through Kickstarter, but it was fairly expensive. I mean, not that much considering, but since a lot of students through my class, they get heavily subsidized by the government because they it's back to work programs and stuff like that. If you're just unemployed, 10 grand is a lot of money. So I'm not sure what's the right starting point. If you're in India, for instance, you don't have that much money to buy classes before paying for a fancy school. If you're a bit of a self-starter, I would build myself a reasonable computer first and get non-commercial on it, and start small with stuff that's attainable. It's better to have stuff that's well executed but less ambitious than try to do an epic Marvel fight of 12 characters with effects and sims and stuff like that. You're better off doing erase a lamppost perfectly on a moving camera shot type of thing. And it's a tough question. I'm not sure what the perfect answer to this. I'm sorry. But definitely first I would try to get not the most absolute crazy 4 grand computer, but get a computer where you can run Nuke in HD, not 4K necessarily, but in HD at comfortable speeds. For small classes like the one I'm teaching, the intensive comp, I way prefer remote personally. It's way more chill because or even for big classes, because I also teach at the bachelor's degree, which is 20 people in the class maybe, and it's you're in a big classroom, especially with computers in the room. It's you have all the fans running, you got to talk real loud. It's really it changes your demeanor. You become really blah 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 blah, and you've got the screen in the front, and they've got screens on the tables, but you can't see anybody's face. Everybody's behind a monitor, and now they have the mask. But even without the mask, I can't see anything because they're all hidden behind the screens, and you gotta commute downtown, blah blah blah. For what? To hear me talk for a couple hours. And you know, I understand not everybody can have a good physical setup at home. Maybe you don't have room to be, you know, in a quiet room, blah blah blah. Fair enough, but a lot of people can. And if you can't, what should happen, in my opinion, either for schools or work, is they should just provide desks for these people. So people that really can't work from home for whatever reason, then fine, commute, go to the office, go to the school, get in a little cubicle area, put on headphones, put on a microphone, turn on your screen, and work from there. And the people that can work from home and want to
continue
should. Well, and I know it sucks when you're young because you want to socialize, right? Well, then organize social events, organize parties, organize happy hours and whatever, lunches and stuff. You know, the socializing is not really happening in the classroom. It's happening in the hallways and at lunch and blah blah blah. And that's the solution, you know. And make sure, especially people starting out right now, nobody is going to go out of their way to socialize with you, the new person. You have to make the first steps. You have to organize stuff. So you gotta go, hey guys, we should go grab a beer, or hey guys, we should go grab pizza or go see a movie or blah blah blah. And that's comes back to my earlier point. You should be a master of chat and email and webcams and all of that. It should be easy for you to get in touch with everybody and get the ball rolling. You know, for that
makes sense. Yeah, obviously it makes sense. So a frequent question which I ask like many of the guests in my podcast, can you tell us more about virtual production and all these trends, and also how it's going to change the compositing jobs in future?
Well, virtual production, I think there's a lot of hype around it. There's some types of shots it's an old technology. It's back back projection. Like back in the 1930s, Wizard of Oz, they did it. You know, have a piece of film projected on a screen and have the actors do something in front of it. You look at old James Bond movies and he's driving and you see the road behind him. Just we refine the technique. Now the camera can move. That's the main update, but the technique is the same. It's a screen and stuff's projected on the screen and you've got stuff in front of it. So it can do some stuff really well. Like car interiors, I expect in the next 5 years will disappear as green screen. There's going to be no, for standard, like if there's nothing crazy happening outside, they're just driving down the road. I expect green screen to disappear completely for these types of shots, because LA, Montreal, London, all these places will have studios set up permanently big enough to get a car in there, and then you'll just have stock footage of streets on the windows and or highway or whatever. So this, and then you get free reflections on the windshields, on the car paint, on the whatever. The lighting is going to be dynamic, no problem for keying hair and stuff like that. So this will remove some work. That's a tiny amount of work that's going to disappear. What's going to be created is way more work up front, and that's a lot of people underestimate how allergic the movie pipeline is to that. So basically now for directors and production to decide stuff ahead of time is unheard of for VFX. They want to keep their options open and blah blah. So if you want to have your actor going and have a dinosaur projected on it, the dinosaur is going to be got to be perfect, and it's going to stay like that forever from the day of shooting forward, because you can't change it, right? That's not going to happen. Period. Full stop. That will not happen. So
I always like to listen to, long list of gizmos everyone uses. Can you suggest some gizmos or plugins which are your favorite and, you most used?
Well, the list for me is very short because, like I said, I most of the time I was a freelancer. So I don't want to have to install a bunch of stuff when I start somewhere. So I try to keep the list as short as possible. So obviously the first thing I install is Pixel Fudger. I think one of the reasons the plugins became popular is not just because of the tools, but because they're portable. So I made an extra effort to make sure they were not gizmos, that they were groups. And so if you put them in your script's still going to run on the render farm. If you send your script to your buddy or another facility, you don't have to install anything. So I think that's another reason why they became popular. I try to keep stuff as portable and you don't have to rely on other stuff.
By the way, Xavier, website looks so cool.
I took those photos. I'm actually on the desk that I took the photo. The wood pattern, that's my desk. I bought brownies at the bakery and I took some photos.
So cool.
But yeah, so these are macro shots of brownies I bought at a grocery store. So yeah. Thanks.
Amazing.
I need to update it, obviously. It's a bit old. But yeah, so that's the first thing. I install my own stuff, obviously, because it's portable and it's the stuff I mostly need. The reason I made this is because I need them, right? Then the other thing I insist is need video or green screen. So that's the number one thing. That's the one exception to the rule. So if I start somewhere and I know that at any point I'll need to do green screen, the first thing I do is, hey, do you have need video? Fortunately, most people do now. But if they don't, I'm like, yeah, we're going to have to buy this. Sorry. This is too useful. Like Nuke's denoise is getting better. It's now usable, but it's not as good as need video.
Yeah.
The other stuff is more stuff I've used with students recently. It's not something I would absolutely install, but it might be interesting for students. So one I like is X Tesla by Xavier Martin.
Yeah.
And this is similar to Sapphire Zap, which from GenArts, and it creates like electric arcs, and you can control how many bolts, so it spreads out like with children and stuff like that. It's really cool. It's available on his website or on Nukepedia. So I really like this one. So it's on Nukepedia as well. Another one that's pretty useful is Expo Glow. There's a bunch of variations on this. This is the one I found that's usable. I'm tempted to make my own. I feel I don't like over-engineered stuff, like post-grade. There's a gray node. If it's too bright, I'll put a grade underneath it. So I don't like to overstuff my gizmos with, but it's pretty good. I like it. The main reason I would rebuild it is the same reason for PXF filler, is if you want more than X iterations, you're stuck. They're pre-built, and he or she, I don't know who's doing this, but Julian. So they're just switching from one branch to the other. I would probably do one where it builds the branches dynamically.
Sounds good.
But yeah, still pretty good. Way better than the default glow. For sure. Another fence that's pretty specialized, but it can coming in handy, is one called JPEGer, and it's a Blink script node that emulates JPEG compression. So if you need, I've come across, we needed this for students because one of our exercises take a green screen of the student and put it in a movie. So they take a movie clip on YouTube or Netflix or whatever, like Avengers, and they dress up in the right outfit, and we put the student, replace one of the characters in the movie by the student. So the stuff, the background in effect is already compressed because we got it on YouTube, Netflix, and they look too clean. So I wanted them to destroy the green screen a little bit. And so usually you would export to JPEG and bring it back in, a write and a read, but this does it live as a node in Nuke.
Nice.
I'm pretty impressed how he did it in Blink script. To be honest, this is way beyond my abilities. The only bug I've found is on more recent versions of Nuke, the GPU implementation's broken. That's not his problem. That's a Blink script issue. But if you just untick use GPU, usually you're fine. So this may be useful if you're trying to do like glitchy effects. Again, these are one-offs, not stuff you use every day. I've come across this FSpy, which is pretty cool, that to get the camera from a still frame. So getting the camera from a moving shot, usually new camera tracker can do it. But if you just have a still frame, you need fairly nice lines, so buildings and such.
Yeah.
and then you can get the camera from that. So this is pretty useful if you want to add assets to a still frame, or just to do matte painting. You know, you want to build your camera and then build your card, so you got to start with a sane camera that's got a reasonable field of view and proper angles. So it's a standalone software. It's free. It runs on Mac, Windows, and Linux, so that's cool. Okay. And you need a little script to convert the output to bring it in Nuke as a new camera. So I'll send you those links. And another one that I found recently that's very intriguing, it's still very clunky to use, but it can be useful. I've used a variation of this recently to do skin work, to key the skin, so it's not a nice clean color that you can key with a Primet or something. It's a UV keyer. So basically, you're drawing a roto of the area that you want to key. So it's using an STMap node. It's just using a built-in STMap node from Nuke, and it's moving the pixels from the roto back onto your plate at the right spot. So it's pretty funky. And this is useful once in a while if you need to key a weird color, like not a primary color. It could also be useful for people with Nuke non-commercial, because you don't have Primat. So this could be a Primat kind of sort of replacement. But ideally, Foundry would need to jump on this and build this into Nuke, so they could have a much nicer interface. The main issue for this isn't the technology of how to key, is how to make a clean, useful interface for users. As Gizmos, we're pretty limited in what we can do. We can't pop windows open and have custom stuff in there, or not easily anyways.
Yeah, I have one more question here.
Yeah.
This is something personal, I guess. Which was your favorite project among the shows which you worked in your past? Is there something like that?
That's a tough question. It depends how you measure it. So if you measure just for the quality of the work, the quality of the shots, I would say Pirates of the Caribbean 3 for me was probably where I did my best shots. However, it's probably not where I had the most fun. Because often these are not correlated. Like sometimes you can have a lot of fun on a crappy movie and have a miserable time on a really nice looking movie. So for me, that's where I had the most fun. It wasn't the project, it was the team. Like, again, I urge people to, it's fun. Obviously, when you're a rookie, you want to work on a big name movie that your friends are going to see in the theater and stuff like that. I understand it. You get a buzz. You see your name in the credits at the end. Nobody else looks at the credits but the people in the credits. But, it's cool. You go, I'm going to be on the Blu-ray forever. That's nice. You should aim for that. But it gets old pretty quickly. So the main thing that makes a project interesting is who you work with personally. So one of the most fun I had probably was I was working at a smaller company called Fuel VFX in Australia. They've been bought out since then by Animal Logic, but it was kind of a little independent studio. They were, downtown in Sydney, and the team was cool. It was a good mix of rookies and veterans, and everybody was pretty friendly. We went out for lunch and beers and stuff like that, and we got a lot of stuff done fairly quickly. So that's what turns me on too, is like I get way more impressed with an okay shot that was done really, really well and quickly than a really amazing shot that took 2 years to comp. And I'm like, yeah, well, of course, if you spend 2 years on anything, it's going to look amazing. So that's the thing. So my best comp experience, I would say my time at Fuel was pretty nice. For the end results, it was probably Iron Man, the first one.
Oh, nice.
And Pirates of the Caribbean 3 that I worked at ILM. But that's a machine over there. It's just such a big, steamroller of a VFX. So of course it comes out nice. They won't allow non-nice stuff to come out. They'll just keep throwing resources at it until it looks nice. Now it's not that impressive, but when I started there, I was asking around. I was like, oh yeah, it's a pretty big shop, eh? Like, how many compers? Well, on this show, and they were running 3 shows there, we've got 78 compers or something. Now it's mundane. But back then I was like, what? Back then a big company had 15 compers or something like that. So of course, okay, I get it. So of course, if the show's got like 300 shots and you've got 100 compers, then each comper is got only 3 shots to manage for the entire show. So of course they're going to polish it and it's going to look amazing. So that's the secret. It's not like magical software and stuff like that. It's just more people doing the same amount of work.
Interesting. Yeah, I think we have gone through like a lot of questions and lots of experience from you. So finally, I would like to listen some feedbacks or suggestions for my content and channel. Like, I was surprised to know that you already subscribed to my channel and you watched my content earlier. So yeah, any feedbacks or suggestions? Go ahead, Xavier.
I don't have that much. I'm sorry. I mean, I am subscribed, but I don't know if I've watched every single item on your channel. I just subscribed to a bunch of VFX channels so I could give a list to my students. So yeah, I think you're doing good. Like, I saw the interview you sent me with Matt at VFX for Filmmaker.
Yeah.
And that looked fairly professional, with the split screen and everything. So, and you look pretty friendly on camera. So keep on doing it, man. Just keep going. Thank you. That's my feedback.
Thank you, Xavier. Thank you for the time. And I'm sure this podcast is going to be, inspiring for many, because I know many friends who are super, super big fan of PXF tools. So they're going to enjoy this podcast.
All right. Well, stay tuned. When I release, I hopefully, soon I'll release an update. I'll get in touch. Maybe we could do a quick video of what's the new tools.
I would love to do that.
Cool.
Until that, see you then.
All right. Thank you.